The nets come up empty again. Pierre Moreau pulls the hemp through his calloused fingers, checking each knot, each weave. The mesh holds firm. No tears, no gaps where carp might slip through. The river flows past his ankles, carrying silt and morning mist toward Orléans. For 3 weeks now, the Loire has given nothing. Other fishermen work their lines upstream, their boats dark silhouettes against pewter water. Their voices carry across the current, frustrated murmurs, hushed arguments. The same conversation echoes from village to village, full rivers, empty nets. Pierre's father worked these waters for 40 years, never saw anything like this. Fish don't simply vanish. They follow currents, chase bait fish, spawn in familiar shallows. They follow patterns older than memory. But patterns break. Something moves beneath the surface, a shadow too large, too purposeful for any river trout. Pierre steps backward onto the muddy bank. The shadow passes, the water settles, the nets remain empty. Loire Valley, France, September 1643. The village of Saint-Dié-sur-Loire wakes to the sound of church bells and cattle lowing in distant pastures. Smoke rises from chimneys, threading through morning air thick with river fog. Children splash in shallows while their mothers beat washing against flat stones. Nothing suggests the wrongness growing beneath the surface. Etienne Charpentier sorts his nets by the water's edge, fingers working automatically through routines learned before he could walk. 16 years old, lean from river work, hands already weathered like his father's. His boat rocks gently in the current, oak planks his grandfather shaped, sealed with pine tar and prayer. The Loire stretches wide here, nearly 200 paces across. Current runs swift in the center channel, slow and dark near the reedy banks. Pike lurk in the shallows, carp cruise the deeper pools, sturgeon, massive and ancient, patrol the river's heart, or did until the fish began disappearing. Etienne's nets yielded 30 carp yesterday, the day before, 20, last week, over 50. The decline follows no pattern he recognizes, not seasonal movement, not spawning behavior, not the usual fluctuations every fisherman learns to read. The water tastes wrong, old Marcel announces from his boat nearby. The village's most experienced fisherman, Marcel has worked the Loire for 6 decades. His weather-beaten face carries the certainty of accumulated seasons. Tastes how? Etienne asks. Metal, like blood in your mouth after a hard fight. Other boats drift closer. Henri, the baker's son, young Thomas from the mill, Gaston with his perpetually torn nets. They gather in the morning ritual of shared concern, voices low over the water. My lines came up cut yesterday, Thomas reports. Clean cuts like someone took a blade to them. Henri nods toward the chateau ruins upstream. My cousin in Blois says the same thing. Empty nets, cut lines, started 2 months ago working. Downriver. The ruins of Château de Chaumont crown the eastern bank, broken walls and collapsed towers that once controlled river traffic. Local legend claims the chateau's foundations rest on older stones, Roman perhaps, or something earlier. Children dare each other to explore the crumbling passages, always in daylight, never alone. Could be river rats, suggests Gaston. Grow them large enough, they'll chew through anything. Rats don't eat sturgeon, Marcel replies quietly. Jacques from Mer found a big female yesterday. 30 pounds easy, something had taken bites from her sides, chunks the size of dinner plates. The men fall silent. Sturgeon represent the Loire's ancient power, armor-plated giants older than kingdoms. Some reach 8 feet, weight of 3 grown men. What could bite chunks from a creature like that? Etienne's father appears on the bank, calling the boats to shore. Morning prayers wait for no fishermen. The group disperses, but the conversation continues in glances, in the way men check their nets twice instead of once. Father Augustin opens the leather-bound register with deliberate care. Each entry represents souls in his keeping, births, deaths, marriages, confessions. The pages yellow with age and candlelight, ink faded but still legible. He finds the entry from 3 days ago. 17th September, year of our Lord, 1643. Jérôme Bouchard, son of the miller, aged 12 years. Found drowned in the Loire near the old bridge piers. Body recovered bearing marks unexplained by simple drowning. May God receive his innocent soul. Below that, yesterday's edition. 20th September. Anne-Marie Dubois, wife to Henri the baker, aged 28 years, lost to the river while drawing water at dawn. Witnesses report disturbed water, unusual sounds. Her body shows similar marks. Lord have mercy. Father Augustin sets down his quill. 2 deaths in 4 days, both by the river, both bearing marks he cannot bring himself to describe in ecclesiastical records. The boy's shoulders showed deep gouges, parallel and precise. Anne-Marie's leg carried similar wounds, too large for pike, too deep for accident. The priest has seen drownings before, bodies bloated by river water, skin torn by rocks and debris. These injuries follow different patterns, deliberate patterns. A knock interrupts his thoughts. Etienne Charpentier stands in the doorway, wool cap in hand, eyes uncertain. "Father, I need to speak with you about the river." "Come, my son." Etienne settles onto the wooden stool facing the priest's desk. His fingers work the cap's rough edge. Something's wrong down there. The fish, the way the water moves. My nets. He pauses, searching for words. "Last night I was checking my lines near sunset. The water started churning upstream, like something big was moving underneath. Real big. How big? Bigger than any boat. The surface broke just once, maybe 50 paces away. I saw something." Etienne's voice drops. "Looked like scales. Dark green, size of dinner plates. And something else. Whiskers maybe, or spines." Father Augustin leans forward. "You're certain?" "I know what I saw, but I don't know what it was." The priest opens the register again, flipping to earlier entries. July, 2 fishing boats found overturned, owners missing. August, reports of strange sounds from the river at night, described as like cattle lowing underwater. September, the deaths. Others have seen things, Father Augustin admits. Fishermen from upstream villages, travelers crossing at the ferry, all describe something large in the deep water. Do you believe them? I believe God's creation holds mysteries we don't understand. Whether this represents divine will or something else, he closes the register. We must be vigilant and prayerful. Etienne's mother ladles soup from the iron pot hanging over the hearth. Cabbage, onions, a small piece of salt pork. The same meal served in cottages throughout the valley. His father tears bread while recounting the day's poor catch. "Marcel thinks we should try the deep pools upstream," his father says. "Near the chateau ruins. Water runs different there." "Stay away from the chateau," his mother interjects sharply. "Nothing good comes from those stones." Etienne's grandmother nods from her corner chair. 80 years old, bent with age, but memory sharp as winter wind. She speaks rarely, but when she does, the family listens. "The old stones, remember," she says quietly. "My grandmother told stories about the river serpent, said it lived in caves beneath the chateau, came out when disturbed." "Just stories, Maman," Etienne's father replies gently. "Stories keep truth alive when truth becomes dangerous." The old woman's eyes focus on Etienne. She said it had whiskers like a catfish, scales like armor, size of 3 boats laid end to end, slept in the deep holes but rose when the river ran blood. "The river doesn't run blood," Etienne's mother protests. "Doesn't it?" The grandmother points toward the window where torchlight reflects off the Loire's surface. 2 dead this week, more missing. The water takes what it wants. Etienne pushes back from the table. "I'm going to check the nets." His father starts to protest, but the old woman raises a gnarled hand. "Let the boy go. Some things must be seen to be believed." Moonlight turns the water into hammered pewter. Etienne walks the familiar path between willow trees, nets coiled over his shoulder. His boat waits where he left it, tied to an oak stump worn smooth by generations of rope. The river seems larger at night, wider, deeper, full of sounds that disappear by daylight. Water lapping against banks, night birds calling from reed beds, the distant splash of fish jumping. But tonight, something else. A sound like breathing, deep and slow, rising from the channel's center. Etienne freezes, hand on his boat's gunwale. The sound comes again, rhythmic, deliberate, too large for any creature he knows. The water begins to move, not current, not wind. Something rising from below, displacing river water in a dome that spreads outward in perfect circles. The surface breaks. Scales emerge first, dark green, each one the size of a man's palm, overlapping like roof tiles. Then, a head, massive and serpentine, crowned with whiskers that stream water, eyes like amber lanterns reflecting moonlight with ancient intelligence. The creature regards Etienne for a long moment, no malice in its gaze, no hunger, merely acknowledgement, one river dweller recognizing another. Then it sinks backward into the depths, scales catching moonlight until darkness swallows them whole. Etienne stands motionless for an hour, waiting for the water to move again. It never does. When he finally returns home, his nets remain on the bank, forgotten. October 1643, the Charpentier cottage. Etienne writes by candlelight, quill scratching against rough paper. His letters, addressed to his cousin in Tours, document encounters that defy explanation. The correspondence will survive 4 centuries, discovered in 1987 during renovation of a monastery library. Dearest Henri, the creature shows itself more frequently now, always near the chateau ruins, always at dusk or dawn. I've observed it feeding, taking carp from the shallows with movements too swift to follow clearly. It does not hunt like a pike or sturgeon. It selects its prey with deliberation, almost ceremony. The village priest no longer dismisses such reports as imagination. Too many witnesses, too many details that align across different observers. Father Augustin begins his own documentation, careful notes hidden within routine parish records. Parish entry, 15th October. Weather continues fair, river levels normal. Note, Marcel Rousseau reports disturbance near the deep pools at sunset. Water displacement consistent with previous observations. Consider increasing evening prayers for fishermen's safety. The creature's appearances follow patterns that emerge slowly, always in the deeper sections, never during full daylight, often preceded by the strange metallic taste Marcel first noted, as if the water chemistry itself shifts in anticipation. Etienne's father accompanies him on evening watch twice before conceding the truth. The third night, they witness scales breaking the surface near the ruined bridge piers, a brief glimpse that confirms what no fisherman wants to believe. We tell no one outside the family, his father decides. Not yet. People panic, they do stupid things. But secrets leak like water through sand. November 1643, the widow Margot's inn. Word spreads through the networks that bind river communities, grain merchants, traveling smiths, clergy moving between parishes. The story changes with each telling, growing larger, more threatening, more dramatic. By November, river pilots from Orléans refuse night runs past Saint-Dié. Merchants complain about delayed shipments, the local lord's tax. Collector notes declining fishing revenues in his ledger. They say it's longer than the church, announces a wine merchant from Amboise, thick as a mill wheel with teeth like sword blades. The widow Margot, keeper of the village's only inn, serves ale while listening to increasingly elaborate tales. Her establishment sits directly across from the chateau ruins, offering the best view of the river's mysterious section. I've seen the real thing, she tells the merchant quietly. Not the monster you describe. Something else. Something that belongs here, maybe longer than we do. Letter from Etienne, dated 23rd November. Henri, last night I watched it surface 3 separate times. Each appearance lasted only moments, but I could observe details clearly. The whiskers move independently, testing water currents like a cat's before drinking. Its eyes reflect torchlight, but show no interest in flame itself. Most striking. It seems aware of human presence without being disturbed by it. We share the river, nothing more. December 1643, Parish Church of Saint-Dié. Father Augustin faces a congregation filled with uncertainty. 3 more drownings since September. Michel the ferryman, young Claude from the mill, an unnamed traveler whose body surfaced near Blois. All bore the same unexplained marks. All died in deep water near the chateau ruins. The priest has exhausted theological explanations. Divine punishment seems unlikely. The victims include faithful parishioners alongside travelers of unknown virtue. Natural causes fail to account for the wounds. Something else haunts the Loire, something requiring different responses. We shall bless the river, he announces during morning mass. Next Sunday, after first light. a procession to seek God's protection for our waters and those who depend upon them. The congregation murmurs approval. Old traditions die hard in river towns. Ceremonies that predate Christianity often prove more durable than doctrine. Blessing water comes naturally to people whose lives depend on its moods. Preparations begin immediately. Women gather flowers that bloom despite December cold. Men fashion wooden crosses from driftwood and willow branches. Children practice hymns learned from their grandmothers, songs that sound older than the church itself. Letter from Etienne, dated the 2nd December. The priest means well, but I wonder if blessing will help or hinder. The creature shows no malice that I can detect. It feeds, it rests, it observes. Perhaps our interference invites the very danger we seek to prevent. Sunday, 8th December, dawn blessing. The procession forms at the church steps as first light touches the river's surface. Father Augustine leads, carrying a silver cross and holy water, blessed with special prayers. Behind him walk the village elders, then families, then children, clutching flowers and makeshift crosses. They reach the bank where Etienne first glimpsed scales in moonlight. The priest speaks prayers in Latin, then French, finally in the local dialect that predates both. He sprinkles holy water into the Loire while the congregation sings. The water accepts the blessing without sign or portent. Morning mist rises normally. Current flows at its usual pace. Fish jump in the shallows as if nothing has changed, but something watches from the deep channel. Etienne sees it first, a disturbance like a rising spring, too regular for wind or current. Others notice soon after. The congregation falls silent as scales emerge 50 paces from shore. The creature surfaces completely, displaying its full length for the first time. Longer than the church nave, thick through the body as a miller's wheel. Dark green scales gleam with water and morning light. Its massive head turns toward the gathering, amber eyes surveying faces with patient intelligence. For 30 heartbeats, creature and congregation regard each other across the water's divide. No threat passes between them, no fear, only acknowledgement. Then it sinks beneath the surface, leaving barely a ripple. The blessing continues, but words carry different weight now. Everyone present has witnessed something beyond theological explanation. The prayers feel more like negotiation than supplication. January 1644, Château du Chambord. News of the Loire serpent reaches aristocratic ears through networks that connect local lords with royal courts. For nobles seeking glory or distraction, monster hunting offers both adventure and potential profit. Dragon scales, if genuine, command extraordinary prices from collectors and alchemists. 3 hunting parties converge on Saint-Dié during January's coldest week. The first arrives from Chambord, 6 men with crossbows and nets designed for large game. The second travels from Tours, led by a knight who claims expertise in fantastic beasts. The third represents a syndicate of merchants financing the expedition for commercial purposes. They quarter at the Widow Margot's Inn, transforming the quiet establishment into a staging ground for elaborate schemes. Maps cover every table, weapons occupy corners. Conversation revolves around tactics for capturing or killing a creature none has actually observed. Etienne watches the preparations with growing unease. The hunters discuss their quarry as if it represents mere prey. Dangerous perhaps, but ultimately conquerable through superior weapons and strategy. They understand nothing about the creature's behavior, its evident intelligence, its apparent coexistence with river life. Letter from Etienne, dated 18th January. Henri, armed men fill the village, each convinced he will succeed where others failed. They speak of glory and gold while measuring nets against something they cannot comprehend. I fear their ignorance will transform a wonder into a tragedy. The first hunt launches on a bitter morning when ice forms along the riverbanks. The Chambord party deploys boats in formation, stretching heavy nets across the channel while crossbowmen take positions on both shores. They wait through the morning, weapons ready, eyes fixed on water that remains deceptively calm. No disturbance marks the deep pools, no scales catch the winter light. By afternoon, frustration overcomes patience. The hunters begin probing with boat hooks, stirring mud from the bottom, shouting challenges at empty water. Their noise carries across the valley, harsh voices that shatter the river's ancient quiet. The attack comes without warning. A boat explodes upward in a fountain of spray and splintered wood. The nobleman commanding the hunt vanishes beneath churning water before his companions can react. Crossbow bolts fly wild, striking empty river while something massive thrashes below the surface. A second boat capsizes as if struck by a battering ram. Men scream, clutching debris while current carries them downstream. Survivors report glimpses of scales, of whiskers thick as ship's rope, of eyes burning with fury rather than patience. The creature disappears as suddenly as it appeared, leaving wreckage and one dead nobleman floating face down in water stained with blood and river mud. The remaining hunters withdraw that evening, their expedition transformed into a rescue mission. They carry tales of a monster more terrible than imagined, a beast that strikes with cunning and overwhelming force. Letter from Etienne, dated 20th January. They provoked something that preferred peace. The creature defended itself as any cornered animal would, but with intelligence that terrified them more than its size. Perhaps some mysteries should remain untroubled. July 1847. Loire River construction site. The sound of hammers and steam engines echoes across water that has flowed unchanged for millennia. Construction crews build the new railway bridge at Saint-Dié, driving pilings deep into the riverbed to support spans that will carry locomotives between Paris and the southern provinces. Chief engineer Charles Moreau, descendant of the fisherman Pierre, supervises foundation work from a floating platform anchored in the channel center. Steam-powered dredges scoop mud and rock from the river bottom, exposing layers of sediment that chronicle centuries of flood and drought. 20 feet down, the dredges encounter something unexpected. "Bones," reports the foreman, holding fragments that emerged with the latest bucket load. "Big ones, nothing I recognize." Moreau examines the specimens by lantern light, vertebrae the size of dinner plates, ribs curved like barrel staves, skull fragments that suggest something reptilian, but impossibly large. The remains show no signs of fossilization, too fresh for ancient history, too large for known species. "Keep digging," he orders, "but carefully. Document everything we find." The excavation continues through the summer, yielding a scattered skeleton that defies easy classification. Naturalists from the university at Tours examine the bones, publishing conflicting papers about their origin and age. Some suggest an undiscovered species of prehistoric fish. Others propose medieval fabrications created for unknown purposes. The local parish priest, Father Michel, successor to the long-dead Augustin, offers different insights. His church archives contain references to the Serpent of the Loire, dating back 2 centuries. Eyewitness accounts, official records, even sketches drawn by frightened fishermen. "The creature lived here for generations," Father Michel tells the assembled scientists. "These bones might represent its final remains." Extract from the Journal of Charles Moreau, 15th August 1847. The skeleton measures nearly 40 feet in length, with cranial dimensions suggesting brain capacity far exceeding any known reptile. Most disturbing, tool marks on several vertebrae indicate deliberate dismemberment. Someone or something killed this beast and divided its carcass with sharp instruments. We found no evidence of metal weapons among the bones, raising questions about who possessed tools capable of such work 3 centuries ago. October 1923. Loire barge transport. Captain Philippe Dubois guides his river barge through fog thick as wool blankets. October mist transforms the Loire into a ghostly landscape where familiar landmarks vanish behind gray veils. Navigation relies on memory, instinct, and the steady thrum of his engine against autumn current. Dubois knows these waters intimately. 40 years hauling cargo between Orléans and the Atlantic ports. Every sandbar, every hidden rock, every trick of current that could ground an unwary vessel. His father worked these same channels with horse-drawn barges, as did his grandfather before steam engines transformed river transport. The Dubois family remembers stories older than steam, older than railways, older than most villages along the banks. Stories about things that lived in the deep pools before bridges spanned the water. Near the ruins of Château de Chaumont, something rises beneath the barge's keel. The vessel lifts smoothly, as if carried by a giant hand. No violence, no sudden shock, simply elevation, as tons of steel and cargo rise 3 feet above normal waterline. Dubois cuts the engine, listening to his boat settle back onto water that now churns with powerful movement below. Something surfaces alongside the barge, scales catching weak sunlight filtering through fog. A head the size of a wine barrel, whiskers streaming with river water, eyes like amber lanterns studying the vessel and its captain. The creature keeps pace with the drifting barge for nearly a quarter mile. No threat in its presence, no attempt to overturn or damage the boat. Merely curiosity, perhaps recognition that humans and their vessels represent part of the river's modern ecosystem. When fog finally lifts, revealing the familiar contours of valley and village, the creature sinks back into depths that have sheltered its kind for centuries. Extract from Captain Dubois' log, 12th of October 1923. Encountered large aquatic animal near collimator marker 47, serpentine form, estimated length 35-40 feet, displayed no aggressive behavior, maintained parallel course for approximately 15 minutes before submerging. Note, similar sighting reported by bargemen from upstream villages, suggests scientific investigation if funding becomes available. The report joins others in maritime archives, scattered accounts from river pilots, fishermen, bridgekeepers, and lock operators. Pattern emerges across the decades, creatures surfacing near the same locations, displaying similar behaviors, apparently representing a surviving population rather than individual anomalies. But official interest remains minimal. The Loire's commercial traffic focuses on efficiency and profit. Mysterious residents that don't interfere with shipping attract little attention from authorities more concerned with tonnage than natural history. November 1971. University of Tours. Research project Dr. Marie Charpentier, distant relative of the young fisherman Etienne, leads a research team investigating anomalous wildlife reports along the Loire Valley. Her background in marine biology and cryptozoology brings scientific methodology to stories that have circulated for centuries. The team deploys underwater cameras, sonar equipment, and chemical analysis tools to examine the deep pools near Saint-Dié. Results prove inconclusive but intriguing. Sonar detects large objects moving through the water column. Chemical sensors record unusual trace elements that suggest uncommon biological activity. Most significantly, the team discovers cave systems beneath the chateau ruins, limestone passages that connect with the river through underwater entrances. The caverns extend deep into the valley's bedrock, providing potential habitat for creatures requiring both aquatic and subterranean environments. We're dealing with something that exists at the intersection of known biology and local folklore, Dr. Charpentier writes in her preliminary report. The evidence suggests a relict population of large aquatic reptiles that have adapted to specific environmental niches along this river system. Her research attracts international attention from cryptozoologists and conservationists. Plans develop for expanded studies using more sophisticated equipment. Funding applications circulate among universities and government agencies. Then, the sightings stop. The village has changed little since Etienne Charpentier first glimpsed scales in moonlight. Stone cottages still line the riverbank. Fishing boats still work the shallows, though fewer than in centuries past. The chateau ruins remain broken sentinels overlooking water that flows as it always has, carrying memory and mystery toward distant seas. Tourism has discovered the Loire's dragon legends. Guided tours visit the chateau. Local restaurants serve serpent stew that contains nothing more exotic than river fish and imagination. Gift shops sell postcards depicting fanciful monsters rising from painted waters. But beneath the commercialization, older currents persist. Michel Rousseau, descendant of the Marcel who first noticed the water's strange taste, works as the village's only full-time fisherman. He knows the deep pools where his ancestors cast their nets, understands the seasonal rhythms that govern fish movement and feeding patterns. He also knows the stories passed down through generations of river families, accounts that describe creatures too large for the Loire's documented ecosystem, behaviors too complex for simple reptilian intelligence, encounters that suggest intelligence rather than instinct. My great-grandfather kept journals. Michelle explains to visitors who ask serious questions rather than seeking sensational stories. Detailed observations over 60 years of river work. The creatures surface during specific conditions, certain water temperatures, particular lunar phases, periods when the river's chemistry changes in ways we don't fully understand. Modern science has documented some of these changes: pH fluctuations that occur without obvious causes, trace minerals that appear and disappear according to unknown cycles, electromagnetic variations that affect sensitive equipment but derive from unidentified sources. The patterns suggest biological processes operating on scales larger than individual organisms, ecosystem-level behaviors that might indicate the presence of species not yet cataloged by conventional zoology. Plans to construct a new dam upstream from Saint-Dié trigger mandatory environmental assessments. Biologists survey fish populations, water quality, and habitat requirements for species that depend on free-flowing river conditions. Dr. Isabelle Laurent, leading the aquatic biology team, discovers anomalies in the deep-water surveys. Sonar returns from the channel's bottom sections show regular disturbances in sediment layers, as if large objects periodically disturb the riverbed. Chemical analysis reveals biological markers that don't match any known Loire species. Most intriguingly, underwater cameras record movements in the deepest pools, shadows too large and purposeful for known fish, too regular for floating debris. The footage remains ambiguous, but suggests the presence of fauna not documented in official species inventories. We're detecting biological activity that doesn't fit standard categories, Dr. Laurent reports to the Dam Construction Consortium. Pending further investigation, I recommend treating these areas as critical habitat for potentially endangered species. The recommendation delays construction while additional studies proceed. Environmental groups seize on the findings as evidence that industrial development threatens undiscovered wildlife. Local authorities worry about economic impacts on communities that depend on river commerce. But in the deep pools where Etienne once watched scales emerge in moonlight, life continues according to rhythms older than human memory. Philippe Dubois III, great-grandson of the barge captain who encountered the Loire serpent in 1923, maintains family traditions that blend commercial fishing with amateur naturalism. His boat carries modern electronics alongside equipment designed for documenting unusual wildlife encounters. 3 times monthly, when moon phases and water conditions align according to patterns his great-grandfather recorded, Philippe anchors in the deep channel near the chateau ruins and waits. Most nights yield nothing more than river sounds and distant lights from village windows. But occasionally, when mist rises from the water and current runs with particular rhythm, something stirs in the depths. They're still here, Philippe confirms to researchers who approach him with serious questions. Different than the stories describe, more subtle, more careful, but present, active, intelligent. His documentation includes underwater photographs that show disturbances in riverbed sediment, sonar recordings of large objects moving through the water column, and chemical measurements that indicate biological activity unlike anything in scientific literature. The evidence remains circumstantial but consistent. Multiple observers across multiple generations describe encounters that follow similar patterns. Creatures of unusual size display behaviors suggesting intelligence rather than instinct. They inhabit specific locations that offer both deep water and connection to underground cave systems. Most significantly, they coexist with human activity rather than avoiding it entirely, suggesting adaptation to changing environmental conditions over centuries of shared river usage. What lurks beneath the Loire's surface? Scientific investigation has documented anomalous biological activity without identifying specific species. Historical records preserve eyewitness accounts spanning 4 centuries. Environmental studies reveal habitat suitable for large aquatic reptiles previously unknown to zoology. But definitive answers remain as elusive as scales glimpsed in moonlight. Perhaps the mystery itself represents the truth. Rivers flow through time as well as landscape, carrying stories that accumulate like sediment in quiet pools. What matters less than the creature's specific identity is their role as guardians of wonder in a world increasingly mapped and measured. The Loire remembers what forests forget, what cities never knew. In its depths, possibility survives alongside probability. Ancient things adapt to modern conditions without losing their essential nature. Étienne Charpentier's letters, discovered in monastery archives 3 centuries after his death, conclude with words that echo across time. Perhaps some truths cannot be captured in nets or killed with spears. Perhaps they exist to remind us that mystery itself has value, that not everything must be named and catalogued to deserve our respect. The river keeps its secrets not from malice, but from wisdom. Those who share its waters learn to accept what cannot be fully known. The Loire flows on, carrying cargo and questions toward the Atlantic. In the deep pools near ruined chateaux, shadows move with purpose that transcends human understanding. Scales catch light from sources older than civilization. And in the village of Saint-Dié-sur-Loire, nets still come up empty on certain nights when the water runs strange and ancient things stir beneath the surface, waiting for moonlight to reveal what daylight cannot explain.